Diversification. You ever heard that word before? That buzzword that you've probably heard with your investments? That person that told you you shouldn't keep all your money in Bitcoin? Did you listen to him or not? I'm going to assume that most people listen to that advice of not keeping everything in Bitcoin, right? I'll actually tell you a funny story. I met with a guy before. He had $11 million total assets. And guess how much of his assets was in Bitcoin? 99%. And I sat across from him, and he's very stuck in his ways. And I told him, you need diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And he told me, well, my Bitcoin was at 13 million, now it's at 11, and I think it's going to come back, so I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to keep investing. Well, a few months later, it got cut in half. He now had 5 million. And then a few months after that, he reached out to me and said, hey, Joe, the custodian that I was with that was holding the Bitcoin, they went bankrupt, and I don't have access to my money anymore. I'm hoping I can get it back here. I'm hoping we can build out a plan. And at that point, I told him, I said, it may be too late, right? You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. It's just taking on way too much risk than you need to. And I told him, what do you need $11 million for? You need about $2 million since you're looking to retire here in a couple of years to make sure that you can live the lifestyle you need. You don't need 11 million, you need 2 million. And I tried to explain that to him. And after he said that the custodian went bankrupt, he said, yeah, my wife's kicking me right now. I'm like, well, you probably should have listened, right? But when we look at investments, we've got to have diversification, not all eggs in one basket, not all of our eggs in Bitcoin. We want to spread it out to make sure that we're taking advantage of things. This is something you should really do at all ages. Even if you're younger, you probably don't want all your investments in Apple stock, right? Apple stock has killed it recently. It's done great, but is it always going to do that well? If you look at companies over time, they don't always produce at a very high level consistently forever. Some may be pretty stable over time, but they're typically not going to do 20% return over a 50-year time horizon. So that's why we want to look to diversify, put our investments in all different places. So here at Peak Retirement Planning, we're a big believers in ETFs or index funds as ways to diversify. We also like to invest in individual stocks, but more than just one. Right? We want to see, typically 25 to 50 individual stocks in a portfolio. That way we can try to pick and choose which stocks we feel are going to do best long term, but we're not taking on too much risk, especially when most of the people we're working with are retirees. And so in our mind, that's one side of the bucket. That's what we call the growth side, right? The growth side is let's invest in the stock market, try to get as much growth over time. Let's try to follow market trends, and let's try to make sure that we're keeping up with the market, because long term, the market always goes up, is what everyone says. And I agree with that, but for our retiree clients, we can't put all their money in the stock market, because if it goes down, they need money, and we don't want to face what's called sequence of returns risk. And if you look up here at this video, you'll see how and why sequence of returns risk can be so severe as you plan for retirement there. And so those are the considerations that we have of why we can't have everything in the growth bucket. And so that's why when we talk about diversification, we also probably want to look at money on the protect side. Now, most people, when they talk about protection, they say, just invest in traditional bonds. Well, if you look last year in 2022, that probably wasn't the best solution, right? Bonds were down about 15% in 2022. If you had $500,000 and you had stocks and bonds, you maybe lost about 20% there. You now have $400,000, you lost $100,000. How is that going to make you feel? Most of our clients are not going to want to have that sense of risk, and so they want to find more vehicles here on the protection side that are either principal protection or something to lower risk, so they can have more predictable, secure, and safe planning for their retirement. They no longer have to throw the Hail Mary pass, they just need to run the ball, get to their destination successfully, is ultimately their motto. So the way we position this diversification is, let's have enough money in our protection bucket to get us through the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, so that if the market goes down, we're not thinking about going back to work, we're thinking about going to the beach and enjoying what we expected to do. And then we still need enough money in the growth bucket to keep up with inflation over time. And hey, we've got the time, so we can take that risk if our clients are comfortable with that and try to seek more growth over time. Back to the protection bucket, we want to make sure we find vehicles there that are going to grow over time We're not looking for anything to get double digits returns, but we need something that's going to be moderate so that it's keeping up with inflation, but just not going to have a big chance of loss. And right now we have a lot of options out there with interest rates so high right now. There's a lot of options on that protection side where you can get a reasonable rate of return and still get that sense of protection that you're looking for. So the key point of this video is make sure we have a plan when it goes into retirement. Make sure we have diversification, not all of our eggs in one basket. We probably don't want to be like the fellow who had all their money in Bitcoin. We probably want to have a plan. And here's how I always say it. Most people we see for the first time, they just have a portfolio. Stocks and bonds, it's all over the place. But when we ask them, how are you going to get income from this when you retire? What are you going to do if the market goes down? They don't have answers. So what you need is what we call a plan. Not a portfolio, but a plan. So hopefully that can help you build out your plan for your retirement.